For legal reasons, I'm going to issue the following disclaimer. This video is intended for entertainment and comedic purposes only. This does not, however, guarantee that it's going to be funny or entertaining. In fact, it's going to be too long and slightly too salty. But the issues themselves are important, primarily because patch 1.6 is introducing some very unpopular, controversial and unpalatable changes. And all the YouTubers coming back from the elite task force don't seem very eager to criticise anything about it. Shit, they're hell bent on promoting it and telling us how awesome it is. For those of you who don't know, Massive have introduced an initiative called the Elite Task Force, which I will refer to repeatedly as the ETF. At first glance, it seems like an admirable project. Basically, whilst working on new content, Massive invite a group of players up to head office for a brainstorming session, where they can pick their brains for ideas, get the lay of the land, and gain useful insights into what the players want. I am going to suggest that the Elite Task Force has got less to do with decision making and more to do with public relations. This may be accidental or deliberate, but the structure of the ETF makes it seem very likely nevertheless. First off, I need to qualify that despite the biting, cynical and salty views I'm about to express, if I'm right, that doesn't automatically mean Massive and Ubisoft are bad guys. It's possible that Massive has the best intentions in the world and just haven't thought this through. I also don't have a beef with Massive or Ubisoft. In fact, the opposite. I think the way they kept investing in the division is credit to them, and they should be applauded for that. They have stuck with this game, and patch 1.4 and 1.5 truly made it great in my eyes. Admittedly, 1.6 looks like it's going to be a fucking train wreck, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as the Mexican gunfighter once said. Similarly, nothing I'm saying is meant as a criticism of people attending the ETF. My criticism is directed at the design and structure of the event, and how it will inevitably shape their opinions, consciously or unconsciously. And we, the community, need to maintain some healthy skepticism about opinions expressed by the guys once they return, because the whole exercise is designed to achieve bias. Their views, intentionally or not, are no longer objective. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about, and how you get people's opinions normally. If you want to know what players think, you can run questionnaires, like everyone does. If you want something in more depth, you can run a couple of 100 focus groups, like the supermarkets do. If you value an individual's opinion so much, you can fucking email them, or pick up the phone, like we all do. If you want to know what an influential YouTuber thinks, you can watch their videos. It's all there. That's what they do. YouTubers spend all day posting videos about their opinions. It's not hard to find out their opinions, because telling you what they think is their occupation. Following from this, if you're running a corporation and you think someone has all the answers to your problems, you can fucking pay them. They're called consultants. If you really think a person has all the solutions on demand, you pay them $2,000 a day to go to a few meetings and keep them on a retainer. So in what circumstances would an organisation take a select small group of people, pay to fly them out on a jolly to the other side of the world, give them gifts, wine and dine them, house them, treat them like valued guests? Because you certainly aren't going to get objective opinions from people by doing that. If, for example, you want to have an honest heart-to-heart with your girlfriend/boyfriend about how the relationship is going, and if there's anything they're unhappy about, would you do this? Fly them to Barbados to a 5-star hotel. When they arrive, give them a car, then take them to a Michelin star restaurant, and as the coffees arrive at the end of the meal and the sun is setting over the sea, look them in the eye and say, "So, is everything okay with our relationship?" They are going to tell you anything you want to fucking hear. Fuck, they might have been about to dump you 24 hours earlier, But now you have 1 month of back rubs and blowjobs on demand. Well, I know of 3 circumstances where these tactics are employed in the real world. Corporate public relations, religious groups, hard selling. Let's look at the psychological processes going on here. You have identified a group of people whose opinion you need to influence. You take them to an unfamiliar location. You remove them from their social support structures. The person is then isolated from all their normal daily frames of reference. You induce a sense of dependency. The hosts dictate and control their activities, where and when they're fed, run the daily timetable, control what is and what isn't legitimate topics of discussion. All aspects of their day are controlled by the hosts, who incidentally control the boundaries of any debate. You also enforce some form of threat of punishment, or as psychologists refer to, you introduce dread. In this case, the non-disclosure agreement. Once people start to lose their sense of perspective, are cut free from their psychic anchors, are dependent on and slightly intimidated by their hosts, then they are very easy to influence. This is a tried and tested formula. You are going to get a lot from people by treating them this way. Compliance, influence, gratitude, agreeability. But you sure as shit ain't going to get objectivity. And this is why I suspect that the ETF is more about massive influencing the guests' opinions than the other way around. Then, of course, there is the composition. A selection of players across the whole game, where incidentally, at least half of each cohort that goes up to head office is a key opinion influencer. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying they're all YouTubers and bloggers. You can change the opinion. If you can change the opinion of the 5 biggest YouTubers, you've changed the opinion of hundreds of thousands of players. This is textbook influencer marketing. Google it. And by the way, for the record, I'm getting a little bit fucked off with hearing YouTubers say, I'd love to get into the details, but I can't because of the non-disclosure agreement. Apart from making you sound like a teen movie cheerleader, signalling that you have privileged information, you're a media creator, and the gaming community looks to you for your opinion. And you've just gone to a corporate HQ of the company that we all buy services from and voluntarily sign a contract agreeing that they can dictate to you what you can and can't say to us. You've not just volunteered to sign it, you're bragging about it. You have just signed up for self-censorship. And like many journalists, reporters and news presenters before you, in your little scheming mind, you think you can sign that and still work within the system. I've signed NDAs, and I know what they look like. There isn't an expiry date on an NDA, brothers and sisters. I know you think you're smarter than their lawyers, but you ain't. There is no clause on that contract that says once patch 1.6 is launched, you can say whatever the fuck you like. NDAs don't work like that. And while we're on the topic, stop using corporate buzzwords just because you've heard them a lot at the Elite Task Force seminars. Every tiny change in the game isn't necessarily exciting. So stop inserting the word exciting before everything you talk about. Similarly, stop using the buzzword unsustainable to describe everything that Massive isn't prepared to do. Okay? Simply describing something as unsustainable isn't a fucking explanation. It's a buzzword. If Massive shrugs their shoulders and just won't do something, simply brushing it away as unsustainable isn't fucking explaining it. And also a quick note about bias and payment. I do keep hearing people say they can't be biased because they're not getting paid. This isn't true. You can be biased and not paid cash. You are, after all, showered in gifts. You can be biased and not realise you're biased. Well, you're not getting paid because of sound legal reasons. If you received cash from them, you'd then have become a paid employee of the company, and your media content about the game would be open to accusations of being paid advertisements. Massive might well be doing this to protect the integrity of the community contributors, and good for them. Equally, they might be doing this because they know everyone will be cynical if money was changing hands. People won't believe what YouTubers say if they come home from the ETF as Ubisoft employees, and this is all sensible stuff. However, if anyone really gave a shit about bias and conflict of interest, the members of the elite task force would be given all of their gifts and goodies as they left, and not the second they fucking arrived. None of what I'm saying is intended as criticism of the people attending the ETF. The whole event is set up to make them feel valued, important, and I'm sure token concessions are given away to make them feel empowered. I'm sure they don't come home with the intention of being company spokesmen. I'm sure they're not consciously aware of just how their opinions have been shaped. And let's be pragmatic here. If you're trying to make a career on YouTube, making content about a video game, and the company invites you up to head office as a VIP guest, that is a career-defining moment. 9 out of 10 people will drop to their knees and start chugging on that corporate cock as hard as they can. They might not even realise that's what they're doing. Like a kid spending the weekend at Michael Jackson's house, they probably don't realise they're being taken advantage of. The bed's warm, they've had a few glasses of Jesus juice, they've enjoyed the cuddles. Why not suck on the purple-headed lollipop? It's not like I'm being forced. It takes a strong will to be put in that environment and remain neutral. I am of course referring to being a VIP corporate guest, not sucking Michael Jackson's disco stick. If you're an up-and-coming YouTuber and you get invited to a video game maker's HQ, some might say there is only one way to behave. Say fuck it and do whatever advances your career the most. We are, after all, only human. So my conclusion would be, the structural design of the elite task force is inherently flawed, either by ignorance or intentional design. Even after all the scathing things I've said, it's still entirely plausible that Ubisoft and Massive came up with the blueprint for the elite task force with the most benevolent intentions in mind. We can't rule out that their only goal is to create this VIP forum where key players in the game community feel valued, share their opinions, and they show the community that they care and that they're listening, and that they're prepared to pay for this too. This is all good stuff. It's not impossible that it hasn't occurred to them that the format that they have chosen is identical to the ones religious cult summer camps use. That it's the same tactics corporations use during company takeovers to make the workforce more pliable and sympathetic to the new overlords. This could all be one happy accident. But let's be real here. I'm a bit suspicious because of 3 main reasons. I'm not convinced Massive are that stupid. Also, the biggest single group being invited are YouTubers and bloggers. And lastly, they all come back from the elite task force using corporate buzzwords, totally blindly supporting the next patch. Lastly, I think Massive should be 100% transparent about which YouTubers are attending. As I understand it, at the moment it's down to the individual if they want to reveal this information. I want a list on the forums which shows me which YouTubers have been mind controlled. Have attended. The community looks to these YouTubers for their opinions, not the company's opinions. We don't want more company spokesmen, we've already got those. They come free with every game. They're either good or shit, and having more or less of them does not influence the occasion in any useful way. Whether YouTubers realise it or not, they are the next generation of journalists, and as such, I hope they maintain some awareness of journalistic integrity. I hope they're all mature and sensible enough to make sure they spend some time being self-consciously aware of how their opinions have been influenced by their close relationships with companies before they start trying to influence all of us. My parting shot would be this. Perhaps I'm totally wrong. Perhaps everything Massive has said is literally exactly true. Well, if that's the case, every patch, 10 random arseholes get invited to headquarters and decide what fucked up version of the game we're going to play with for the next few months. If this is the case, then cancel the ETF scheme, because I would rather trust Massive. I didn't vote for those specific YouTubers to represent me, so why the fuck are they dictating the direction of the game? No offence. But I suspect that this is not the reality, and I'm sure you would agree. If you managed to get all the way to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you, and also applaud you for having a much longer attention span than me. If I'd been watching this video, I'd have turned this shit off ages ago. Please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up button, and making a random rude comment. Peace.